Well, as you can see, the flowers are already starting to come up. Oh, it's springtime's finally hit Arkansas. I am so happy about that. We may have a shot of cold here and there, but overall the flowers are up, and that means we're good weather from now on. Today is March the 2nd, and it's time, with the weather the way it is, to get working on the T-Bird. Alright, oh man, it's like coming out of a tomb here. There's old buddy over there. He's going to stay there all day until I come out of the garage. He's such a good little doggy. He's having a good time too. Alright, being the March 2nd, which is this Monday, on Wednesday our oldest grandson is coming over, and we're going to tear apart the other side of the car. And my job today is to get the wheel off, get this side jacked up so everything's off the ground. And then I talked to his wife. I said, hey, I need to borrow James on Wednesday to help with the car. And she said, hey, don't worry about it. Borrow him as long as you need him. I said, okay. So that's what we're going to do today. Just a few small items here. And I did put in an order for some new parts. We're getting down to only, I think, one more part to order. And I'll be ordering that in June or July. That'll be the new brake caliper. We've got the caliper for the other side. Everything else has been purchased. Should be here by Wednesday or Thursday, and we need that new brake caliper. And then of course I've got to clean these two front rims, de-rust them, paint them, make them look halfway decent, get this black wall tire off here and get the white wall on, a bunch of little things like that. And then once we get and de-rusting, that's the biggest thing: cleaning, de-rusting, painting. I won't have to go through all of that with you, which will extend the videos. You already know how I did it. If you don't know, go back and watch all the old videos. But we'll be cleaning, undercoating, our priming, painting, undercoating, getting it squared away under there the best we can, then throw it all back together, and then hook up the brake lines. And I think she'll be ready to crank up. Put the oil in it. I got to put oil in the engine, and that's about it. It's going to take a few more videos to get all that done, but hang with me. Then of course I had to repair the hose. I had to wind up buying a new hose for our Black & Decker power washer. I'm going to have to clean the outside of the garage. It is just covered with crap from all the pollen we get here in the spring. The building gets wet, from moisture and dew and everything, and then the pollen just sticks to it, and the whole garage looked like it's been standing there for about the last 50 years, but we'll clean that up too. So hopefully we'll make some progress today, some more anyway. Well, I've been at it for about an hour and a half. I think what I'll do is just leave the rest for my grandson. And I've taken this off and that off, just standard old stuff. I also decided to drop the drag link. And over here, I think this is called the idler arm. It's just held on with a plate on the other side with 3 bolts that go through and hold it in. The other end's already been disconnected from the pitman arm. The pitman arm is what connects to the end of the steering wheel shaft down at the bottom. The pitman arm swings this way and this way when you turn the steering wheel. So it's already disconnected there. When James shows up, I'll go ahead and we'll remove these 3. We'll drop the whole thing down. We'll get that cleaned up and painted, looking good too. As you can see, there's tons and tons of still more mud wasp nests. My goodness, they're everywhere. Up here, everywhere. I'll have them take out the shock too. Yeah, we got a lot of de-rusting, but it won't be quite as bad as the other side. Not quite as bad at all. Looks pretty nice, actually. I won't have to take this out, I don't think. I had to take it out for the fuel and gas line, or the brake and gas line on the other side. But I am going to look behind it, because you'll remember the other one had a ton of grass and everything behind the fender here, all piled up in here. I don't want that to get there. That stuff gets wet and it begins to rust right through your fender to the other side. So we'll go ahead and call it quits for now, and I can go in and get this put in the computer and do a little editing. One more thing, the inner and outer tie rod end I removed also, and I put some tape around it. These are not adjusted to the same length on both sides of the car. They never are. They're always off a little bit. I'm talking about the threads and how far they're screwed into the adjustment sleeve, which is this thing in the middle. Now you might say, well, why do you have to mark it? Why do you want, you're going to put new ones in. Why do you have to mark this as the passenger side? Because the new ones, I'm going to be using this as my pattern for screwing in the new ones into the new sleeve, and I'll be counting how many threads are there. And we want to make sure we get it as close as possible to what it was originally when we screw these threads here into the new sleeve. Get it? Yeah.
Just because they're up.
Well, there's old James. He's just hard working on it there, tearing it apart. And I took a lot of it apart the other day, like I said. But he's working on it. We've got it held up again with boards, 2 jack stands in the front, a jack here, and another jack underneath the lower control arm, the other side of his arm. And he's just going to rip and tear it apart. I told him he needs to say no to crack. While he's doing that, I'm going to do the hard work. You know, I'm going to take this old wire brush. This is the backing plate, and you know, like I did on the other side, we're going to wire brush as much of the loose rust off as we can on both sides, and then we're going to put some nice fresh vinegar in our soaking plastic vat, and we're going to start derusting some of this stuff. Well, it's good to get the old derusting vat back in operation here. Every time I put a piece in there and pull it out and it's been derusted, we're one step closer to getting the front end of the car done. So I've already got a gallon of vinegar in there. I went down to Walmart's just a few minutes ago and picked up a ton of vinegar, and probably more than I needed. But you know, I'll just give it to wifey and say, make lots of salad dressing. You know? And we'll go ahead and put our first victim in and see if that's enough. If not, nope, not quite enough. We'll add more, and that's all we're going to do is just keep derusting. I want that front end done. I'm tired of working on it. That's 4 gallons of vinegar. I'll probably have to add 1 more, and that'll be all I'll need to derust all the rest of the parts under the car. We just let it sit. Every once in a while, I'll come out after like 3 days. Maybe I'll take this little wire brush. I'll take that out and scrub all the loose rust off on both sides. Scrub a little bit. Put the rubber gloves on. You know, you want to do it with your orange rubber gloves right there. Those are mine. And you just kind of scrub all the loose rust off and put it back in there, and just do that a few days later and it's done. And no effort at all. For those who haven't seen how I do this, if you're just now checking in, this is where I derust the big items. And this little old lunch bucket I used every day until I retired. This is where the small pieces go. I got some small bolts and things like that. I just throw them down in there, let them soak for days on end. Pick them up, wire brush them every so often. Now that I have a bench grinder, I don't have to quite leave them in there quite so long. I can use the bench grinder with the wire wheel that I got to knock off the remaining rust on the small items. Well, the boy did a pretty good job. Everything is out of there. The upper control arm, lower control arm, coil spring, all that stuff. We worked together on a lot of it, but he did the majority of the work. So that takes a load off my back, at least for a while. Of course, in the process, he took out a lot of wasp nests. I started calling them the home wrecker. And of course, there's still a lot of work to be done. Ball joints have to be removed. These bushings have to come off, and the horizontal rod has to come out. Everything needs to be derusted. We'll be at it for quite a while. And next time we'll go ahead and measure this coil spring, and there's a difference in height from one side of the car to the other. I don't know if you remember that from the previous video when we took the spring out and was cleaning it up and painting it. I think there's like 1/4 of an inch of difference. I can't remember. Alright, I think that's going to be about it for today. We're going to wrap it up. We're both kind of tired, and I have to get James back over to Little Rock Air Force Base, get him home. Tomorrow we'll come back out and we'll finish up this video with this right here. You'll notice that, you know, I told you that this rubber thing fit down in the hole right here. You know, it's got a little end on it right there. And then the top of the shock comes up through, and a nut went on and held it down in. Well, that's not exactly the way it was, and that's not exactly the way it works. So we'll pick this up tomorrow, we'll talk about it, and then wrap up the vid. Well, we got a few parts in, as I told you. I think in the previous video I said I had ordered some parts. So let's go ahead. I had to order them from Max this time. And upper and lower ball joint. see, I think that's what this is here. I think this is the other one, made in Taiwan. Jeez. And the flexible hose I need for the caliper. And these things here are the rubber things I was just showing you in the last segment. And that's what we're going to discuss today. I also ordered a couple of new front shocks. For those who own a 66 Thunderbird, when I went to order the front shocks from Max, they said they are temporarily out of stock. And in a couple of places they said they're going to be out of stock, period. You know, they're not going to be carried anymore. So I said, well, that sucks, you know. So I went on over to Rock Auto and ordered them there and wound up saving myself $10 anyway. So they should be in today. Now, one thing about Max, you know, I'm not crazy about their shipping costs. However, you know, they're standard shipping. I can't stand standard shipping. But I have to give them credit. They are fast on the delivery. 2 days, boom. FedEx guy was right here with it. Did not expect it again. The first time that happened, I thought it was kind of a fluke, but no, apparently that's standard operation for those guys, man. Boom! I mean, it was just like here instantaneously. So let's go ahead and open these things up here and take a look at what I'm talking about. Now this right here, again, is the part I removed from the top of the shock mount. And you'll notice that there's 4 tabs on here. Now originally I said this is the way it was set up. This thing here, this is the original one, went down through there like that. And then the shock came up through the center, the top of the shock, and then you put your nut on it. And the more I thought about this, I said something's not right here, because every time the wheel went up and down and the shock went up and down, this thing here would bounce up and down like that. There's nothing to hold it in. It's just sitting there. It made no sense to me at all. I said something's got to give. So I looked around, and I asked a few of you fellers who own Thunderbirds that, you know, what do you have underneath the cap, you know, that goes over the top of this thing? Do you have a round thing? Now, I never got any answer. So what that did is it told me that there is no round thing under there. Because you can't tell me something you don't know, you know, so, or you don't have. So that brought me back again to this right here, and I said something just isn't right. It's impossible for that shock to go through there, get screwed to there, and then just bounce up out of that hole every time you hit a bump. So I went ahead and took a chance, and there's nothing in the shop manual that tells you exactly about this. Nothing at all. And so I went online, looked around, YouTube, nothing. So I took a shot, and I went ahead and I ordered what they call the upper and lower. Let me see, these are shock bushings. Now they're upper and lower. Now this is the, let me show you what I'm talking about here. Hang on. There it is right there. It says, this is again Max. This is the upper shock bushing and the top shock bushing. Well, to me, upper and top are the same, but they're not, you know. They're 2 different things. Also, when you look at this this plate right here, you see these 4 tabs, and underneath there's rubber stuff and metal. And I'm like, what the heck is all this about? This is crazy, you know. There's no way that this thing had anything attached to it. You know, I turned it upside down here. And I couldn't quite figure out what was going on. Well, we now know what the deal is. This is the key to the whole thing. It's a rounded one, and you'll notice it's got 4 tabs. Okay, now those 4 tabs are these 4 tabs here, and it goes in from the bottom up, and it'll wind up after I get it all. I'll have to remove this old one by bending those tabs straight, pulling it out, cleaning it up, and painting it and everything, and then we'll go ahead and stick. This goes in the bottom like so, and then we bend those tabs over. And then once the tabs are bent over, like you see right here, then this will go down from the top and fit right between it like so. Not this one. This one over here. This is what the new ones look like. They look exactly like the original. And then this will go down there like that. And this plate will be between it. Now, see, once that's bent over, now the rod goes up through the center all the way from the top of the shock, and it will bump against the bottom by virtue of the way the shock is designed, the shock rod, and it won't pop up out of that hole, because this thing here will prevent that from happening. Alright, now we know how that goes together, folks. This is the top and the upper. Just kind of, you know, this really should be top and upper and lower, but they're not. This is the top, this is the upper. So we're going to go ahead and get that all back together. I got enough to do both sides. And where's the other one at? Oh, there's the other one. Okay, another upper and a top. So that's how that's going to go back together. I wish somebody would have showed me this in a video. You know, no one shows you any of this crap. Also, one of our good subscribers said he has a set of these support rods that go from here all the way up to the firewall. He had his removed, or no, he put new ones on that were powder coated on his. He's got a nice Thunderbird. You all are going to see that one, by the way. And he still has his old ones, he said, if he can find them. So we'll find out how much he wants for those. And we'll get those babies cleaned up, painted, and maybe we'll have a nice set of support brackets on our Thunderbird here, okay? Because this is kind of our T-Bird. Yeah, you know, I'm doing all the work and putting the bills and everything, but, you know, those of you who are following along, it's our car, okay? You all are going to get great satisfaction along with me, I would hope, the day I start it and crank it up and drive it out of here and take it down the road on its first drive. Now on that first drive, all I'm going to do, none of the interior work will be done. I just want to get the car where it'll start and drive and stop, and the taillights work good, and the signal lights, and we'll take it down to the end of the road where I live here, and we'll bring it back. It's only about 1.5 miles. It'll be kind of fun, but the floorboard will still have the giant hole on the passenger side in it. All I'm going to do is take a piece of plywood, lay over the top, put a carpet over the top of it to keep the road noise down, you know, because that starter, with that hole there, boy, it makes a wicked noise when it starts to go. But, you know, you cover it up and it silences it way down. So that's coming. We haven't got too much longer, trust me. It looks like it might be long, but it's not. So hang with me. For those of you who want to see the complete drag link that goes between one side of the car to the other, this is it right here. It's a big, long, heavy rod. And then it runs all the way across to the car. And this is where the other tie rod, inner tie rod end connects, here and there. And then it comes over here to the idler arm. You know, believe it or not, there's not a picture of this in the shop manual. Can you believe that? It's just nothing there that shows this. Anyway, this thing just bolts right to the side of the car with those 3 bolts I was telling you about. And there's a washer, there's a flat washer on this side along with a nut, but we're going to go ahead and put a lock washer. And we'll put a flat washer and a lock washer on this side here. It's got long bolts, about that long. I got them soaking in the vinegar right now to clean them up a little bit. And this right here, you know, normally is pretty much worn, but it's not. Boy, this is nice and tight, nice and smooth. It works great, no grit. I'm really happy about that. Same thing with this one right here. This turns and this turns. This stays stationary. And both of these are very smooth and very tight, so we won't even have to mess with that. All I got to do is clean them up and give them a nice paint job, make them look good. One last thing on that front end, I'm thinking about removing the sway bar. And it looks like this. It's all rusty and everything. I mean, it's the last item under there that needs to be cleaned up and de-rusted, so why not do it? I got one end of the sway bar loose anyway from this end of the car we just disassembled. And getting it off the other end, it's just a matter of removing a nut and a lock washer. So, you know, why not do it? And get it in here and get it cleaned up along with this one. See what we can do. I just hate to, you know, have the entire front end clean, painted, looking good. And then here's this big old rusty sway bar in there. No, that's not going to get it. We'll take that down. I'll probably take that down in the next video and start wire brushing it and cleaning it up. Well, before we go, one last reminder, the 15th of March is the cutoff time for our subscribers who currently own a 64, 65, or 66 Thunderbird to send me 2 or 3 pictures, 4, doesn't matter, and a little description of maybe, you know, tell me what state you live in. All I'm going to show is like Bob from Illinois or Bob from Wisconsin or whatever. And tell me a little bit about the car. You know, what made you decide to buy a 64, 65, or 66? Maybe you didn't buy it. Maybe you inherited it. Maybe somebody just gave it to you. Didn't want it anymore. What is your attraction to that particular car, if any? I always thought they were really cool looking cars. I really liked the 64, 65, 66 Thunderbird. To tell you the truth, I never really thought I'd ever own one. I liked the lines. You know, when I grew up, I liked the luxury cars. All my friends, I was always different from my friends. They all liked the 55 Chevys, you know, the 57 Chevys, although I did own a 57 later in life, much later. That's because I picked it up for $350, so a two-door hardtop. My son has it now. But I like, you know, I took my driver's test in a 59 Oldsmobile, a huge car. My dad owned a 57 Mercury, which is a big car. He also owned a 59 Buick. But these were all big cars, you know. I always wanted an Edsel, but you know the price range on the Edsel has just gone beyond me. I just don't. It's a matter of principle now. Those cars are not worth that kind of money. So my ultimate dream car I'd like to have right now would be a 1962 Oldsmobile Starfire convertible. I'd love to have a GTO, don't get me wrong on that. I'd love to have a GTO convertible, but you know, that's as far as the luxury side of the house goes, which is where I normally, I usually lean toward the luxury cars. That 62 Starfire, that is, to me, is the, I used to own a 62 Olds, and I always wanted the Starfire, but I couldn't afford to buy one. I bought my 62 Olds for $800, and at that time, that was a lot of money. I wasn't making much, you know. Anyway, when I married wifey, it was our 62 Oldsmobile. It was our first car. So, but I always thought the Thunderbird was a luxury car. The 64, 5, and 6. It had the 390 engine in it and the 428. So other people also called it. It was known as a muscle car. I never looked at it as a muscle car. I always looked at it as a really cool luxury car. You know, it's just really slick. You know, cushy ride and all that. You know, and. But anyway, you know, to me it's still a luxury car. Yeah, it's got a big engine in it, but, you know, there were big engines in a lot of cars. So anyway, tell me what your attraction was to it. I got a couple of inputs from folks who sent me photographs of cars other than the Thunderbirds. And I'm thinking, the first time I got it, I'm like, why is that being sent? You know, I don't understand. And then I got another one. And I said, man, this is two now. I went back and looked at the video and everything, and I couldn't figure out what I would have said. At first I thought it was, well, maybe I said something wrong. People misunderstood me because I goofed up or something. But I think what it was, and the way the video was put, I think they were skipping through the video. And when you skip through the video, you miss certain parts. And I think they might have skipped to the part that said, hey, send me pictures of your car. Well, you know, they missed the part, I guess, that said, 64, 65, 66 Thunderbirds, but I'm sorry, you know, that's this is a Thunderbird restoration, and we're going to stick with those, you know. So let us hear about it, you know. Tell me what color the paint is. If it's not an original paint, we have a couple that were not original paint. I didn't know what color they were, and the state you live in. And, you know, I've had the car for 12 years or whatever, you know, and the car belonged to my grandparents, and I just never got around to restoring it, and I will someday. You know, don't worry about condition. We don't care about condition. Just show us what you got, you know, 2 or 3 pictures. I mean, so far we've got 5. You know, let's get it up a little higher, okay? One more thing I'm going to show you. I need something, folks, and some of y'all have parts cars that may have it. So old John from Arkansas here, he's come begging. You see this keeper, these are the 2 large square headed bolts that hold the strut rod in place. And there's a keeper here, a flat one with a thing on each side that looks like this that the bolt head fits down into, and keeps it from turning when you're tightening it up underneath, keeps it in place. Well, when we tore apart the other side, I told you before that side of the car had been in an accident at one time or another, and it tore this thing right into 2 pieces. And the one side with the lip that comes up is flat. It just ripped it right apart. So if anybody has this flat keeper with the 2 flared ends on it, give me a holler. I can buy it from you, not a problem. Well, that's it for now. So if anybody has that part, I'd greatly appreciate it. Get those inputs in on the Thunderbird that you might have. Not one that was previously owned and you no longer own it. It has to be one that you currently own, a 64, 65, or 66 Thunderbird. The next few videos, the next video for the Thunderbird it'll be a while before it comes up, because I'm doing nothing but derusting. Unless you want to sit around and watch a vat full of vinegar derust the parts, I can just put the camera on the bat and you can watch that for 20 minutes. I don't want to do it. If you want to, I can make that happen. So that's about it. Any questions or anything, please get with me. And the weather's really nice now. I've got to go downtown and pick up a few things to aid in the cleaning up underneath the fender and all that stuff. So I got to get out of here and get that done. So until next time, this is John.